And welcome to the weekly Extra Point Live. I'm your host, Moe Khan. With me, as always, is none other than Matt LeBlanc himself, Jim Kolethras. Say like that one.
Never mind who I am. You almost forgot who you were. So I think that's a big one. But I'm glad to be one of your friends.
Excellent, excellent. And the Matthew Perry of the show, Donald Bomb Squad Shepherd.
I don't know who that is.
Friends.
Oh, Matthew Perry.
Matthew Perry, man.
Oh, I thought you said Mackie Perry.
No, Matthew Perry.
Okay, let's enunciate. Tonight we will all talk like this.
So I said I'm happy to be one of his friends.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
The pun.
Wow, that was a great one.
It was a great one. All right, speaking of great games, we had some excellent matchups this past weekend. And the first game we're going to look at is the D1 battle between the Old School and Demons. Historically speaking here, they've been at it through the outdoors and indoor leagues. And as a result, it was a 45-45 tie between the two teams. That means they're both losers, as Homer Simpson would say in that infamous episode. Don Shepherd, are you surprised by the fact that both these teams tied 45-45?
I was actually really surprised because the last two touchdowns, I believe it was, for each team, four converts missed in a row, so no one capitalized on even trying to gain a lead. It was like, yeah, it's okay. If they score, we're still tied. It just seemed like that. And it was also surprised because Carmine Police and Paul Lapierre, as we'll find out later on, had already similar feelings and kind of knew how the feeling felt. So I was shocked. I didn't expect it at all.
Well, again, they split the points, but you wonder if it's going to hurt the future playoff seedings down the road, which we'll talk about a bit later on. In Division 5, the Coyotes held their way to victory, GM, as they win this football game 33-26 over the Takers. Your boy Sam Feder had a pretty good game, 5 touchdowns, however 3 INTs, not very crisp as a quarterback in terms of the INT department. But Descalin, Pierre Louis, 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs. They lose by 7, the Takers, but can you take anything from this game? No pun intended.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not only did my boy Sam Feder have a good game, but his boy Josh Feder had a fantastic game. The Takers were absolutely unable to stop him. He went out with 2 TDs and a whole bunch of yardage. I think that what the Takers have to take from this game is they really need to manage the time clock efficiently. They were poised to score and tie it up, or even take the lead with a 2-point convert, but they gave the Coyotes too much time to come back with that lead and march the ball up. And then the Coyotes scored, and that was the game for them. So you know what? I think that effective time clock management is definitely something the Takers need to take away from this.
Well, to be precise, Josh Feder had 10 catches, 78 yards, and 2 touchdown grabs for the Coyotes, who are howling the way to maybe a division crown very soon. All right, Division 2, and as Don alluded to, the Trojans, led by Carmine Police, Victorious Secret, led by your boy, Paul Lapierre. Tie again. Losers are losers. 39-39. Surprised by this outcome, even though, again, a tie is very rare in FPF.
What makes it surprising is both Carmine Police and Paul Lapierre have never had a tie in their careers. All the years Carmine has been playing in Flag Plus, he's never had a tie, and he has 2 in one night. And similar games, because both games ended on a convert attempt that went to a receiver and was thrown just a bit too high. It was almost identical endings. It was hilarious.
Well, again, I mean, you wonder in the ever tough Division 2 race right now with all these teams in the top half of D2 are clustered together within 2-3 points of each other for first, second, and third. And then you look at the bottom half of D2, which is very, I guess, polarizing in terms of who can assume the 6th, if not 5th seeds of that division. So
we
we'll
got
find
a full
out.
Mason-Dixon line kind of thing
Exactly.
going on.
Real Mendoza line, so to speak here. Division 4, X-Men win 34-30 over the Hard Knocks. Got him on. Swim the hand. Finally got it for the first time ever in my life. 22-25 for 166, 6 touchdown passes. That means he was averaging about 1 touchdown pass for every, I guess, 3.5 pass attempts, give or take, or completions, pardon me. Your thoughts, Jim, on them getting a big win over the X-Men?
Both the X-Men were the ones who came up ahead. Actually, it was Hard Knocks.
Yes, Hard Knocks, my apologies.
Hard Knocks actually played with 6-man roster, so you know what? When you show up with only 6, you're already pretty much setting yourself up for failure. Though be that as it may, Hard Knocks had a really, really good outing. Both QBs actually, both Phil Pedentedev and Gautam Swamindahan. This is the tongue twister if I've ever heard one. They're both incredibly efficient. Both of them had completion ratios in the high 70s, low 80s. Alex Donia was definitely a difference maker in this game.
4
With
sacks.
4 timely sacks that really, really limited the Hard Knocks offense. And you had 2 huge, fantastic receivers going at it in Nicholas Abelhauser and Chris Bastien, who were formerly teammates and will be teammates once again next year at Concordia. So this was a fantastic game to watch. I'm surprised, actually, that it wasn't Game of the Week.
Well, yeah, listen, I mean, sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. And maybe down the road, this is a future playoff matchup. We'll see how it goes. Speaking of a game that could have been Game of the Week, but because they were a part of the Game of the Week a little bit earlier in the season, the Dirty Birds win a close one over the D-Boys. I guess you could sort of say this is the Battle of West Island, a little bit of that. And then you had Danny Gentili, who had a love affair with the D-Boys a couple years ago.
You say Battle of West Island every time the Dirty Birds play.
I know.
It doesn't matter who they play against. They could play a team from
I
below.
know. Winning 27-25. Gentili not that great, though. 12 of 28 for 189 yards, 4 TDs, 1 INT. Marco Masiocha had a pretty good game himself in terms of the touchdowns department, but again, 16 to 33, and there was a huge, huge disparity in the first half compared to the second half, where essentially the Dirty Birds were behind and then came back to win this football game. I'll start with you, GM. The heavyweight fight between these two teams, did it live up to its billing?
Absolutely. I mean, I actually lost a lot of pride and a bit of money to Rick Cummins because I thought that the D-Boys would come out ahead and maintain the lead. Unfortunately, they didn't. It was really the second half interception that Marco Masiocha threw that did them in. There's also the idea that Danny Gentili knows the capabilities of all the D-Boys players and adjusted his playbook accordingly. So you see that the Dirty Birds were really able to adapt in the second half, whereas the D-Boys came out strong and they peaked early.
Don, your thoughts quickly on the Dirty Birds against the D-Boys, which we'll talk about a little bit later on here. But in terms of the whole composition, these are two teams that could eventually make the jump up to D2. Do you like their chances of making that move down the road?
Well, I mean, both teams need to find a quarterback who's going to stay with the team. I mean, D-Boys and Dirty Birds have had, well, John Young obviously this year was hurt, isn't playing, but D-Boys have had Gino DeFazio, who led them to a title. They've had Danny Gentili, and now they have, I'm sorry, what's his name? Marco Masiocha. I couldn't pronounce the last name, I apologize. But, I mean, if they could find a solid roster and get a few more seasons under their belt, they could absolutely make the jump. But right now, I just find there's no consistency at QB. They got to begin the season, adapt to a new QB, figure out the system. I mean, Dirty Birds, will it be Daniele Gentili next year, or will John Young be back?
A quarterback controversy ensues in the next 6 months for the Dirty Birds, and maybe for the D-Boys. We'll have to find out.
Dun, dun, dun.
Let's go to the first topic, D1 basement. The battle for 5th place, because for those who do know, it's 5 teams that qualify. However, it's a playing game, 4 versus 5. The 1 seed has essentially a bye, so to speak. Then the 2 will play the 3, and then the 1 will play either the 4 or the 5. Don, your thoughts? The battle for 5th place right now, as it looks, the Red Hawks have that possession right now, the 5th place possession. But can the Rainmakers overcome the obstacle, because they did lose to the Red Hawks earlier in the year, so they essentially have to beat them plus point differential and maybe have to win another game to really solidify their spot as maybe the 5th seed?
Well, I think the Rainmakers this weekend, they got to take it. If they don't take it, then it's all over for them. The Red Hawks have a very difficult path ahead of them. Once they play this game, if they lose, they have Demons, Finest, and Old School to finish the season.
That's death row right there.
Death row. So Red Hawks have to make it happen this weekend. If they don't, they are not making the playoffs. If Rainmakers win, it's done.
So we'll talk about the prediction maybe if you want to give that out.
No, I'm just saying the battle for the basement. I mean, first of all, I'm shocked the Rainmakers are there. Like, I didn't think, how did this team devolve into losing, or did the other competition evolve that much higher to take a step ahead of them?
Especially with the strong spring season they had last year.
Exactly. So it's very confusing to me. But basically, I think they have the ability to overcome this. But will they even make a run in the playoffs? Will they be able to pick up the pieces from what's been happening so far this year with another loss this weekend? So it's shocking to see them in this position. But at the same time, the Red Hawks just haven't gelled yet indoor. A lot of them play together touch outdoor in the Wolfpack. But just indoor, it's not happening for them.
Let's not forget, Don, that the Red Hawks got a pretty big beatdown from the Expos, only scored 8 points in a big loss to the Expos. So both teams are stumbling into this matchup, which could really be, all right, whose psyche is more fractured, the Rainmakers or the Red Hawks?
I'd have to say the Rainmakers, because how do you get in this position in the first place? I mean, if I'm at home, I'm going, why am I here? What, is there a loophole? Is this the Twilight Zone? I just, had such a phenomenal spring season, and now we have one win. One win. The Red Hawks are still learning their way to the indoor game. They got to learn, to tone down the aggressiveness a little bit, because at a tackle, you get used to playing physicality a certain way. But the Rainmakers have no excuse. They shouldn't be there. But at the same time, they have the experience to overcome the fragile psyche. So, are the Red Hawks going to be able to step up and do that? But I think the Rainmakers also can really get it back on track to make the playoffs at least.
All right, the next topic here, Brocasian. This is a team that no one expected to be where they are, GM.
Brocation.
That's correct.
Brocation.
Are they primed for an upset, though? I mean, you think about their roster. Norman Weeks, he's had a lot of experience. He did come up short one year, and had some success. You have Nicky McGuire. You have Steve Haddad, who's out with a fractured finger, and he might be out maybe until the start of the playoffs. So are they primed for an upset, though?
I mean, look, a lot of teams are debating the strength of Brocasian. Should they be in D4? Should they not be in D4? I think absolutely their place is D4, and I don't think they're untouchable. They're a very, very strong team, but there's a way to upset them. First of all, look at their strengths. Their strengths are bringing about 3 interceptions to every game. So right there, you need an offense that has to march the ball up methodically rather than banking on the deep ball every time. And I think you need to pair that with either a tall rusher who's going to limit Norman Weeks' line of sight and passing lanes, or you want a team with aggressive corners who will really jump those routes and try and get those picks. So I think, is there a team that's poised to upset Brocasian? Absolutely. I would pick their Week 10 matchup against Lake Cab. I think that Mike Stagg runs just the offense for that, and you pair that with Corey Greenaway and the Ryan Phillips experience from D2 and D3 respectively, and I think that that's definitely the team that's poised to upset them. If not them, maybe in the first or second week of the playoffs, you see they'll probably face the Family again, who they beat by a 1-point margin in Week 1 with Norman Weeks. So I think that this is definitely, they're not untouchable, but yes, they are a very, very strong team in this division.
All right, very well. The next topic here, Wolfpack Howling. And this is a team we know very well in Division 2. They've been to a couple of finals during their franchise history in FPF. And they've always been that team, Don, that start off slow, and they always come on strong, come March into early April, then they lose when it matters most here. Are the Wolfpack for real, though?
I can't say for sure, but I'm starting to see that possibly we could have a reverse trend, and this year they start out strong and finish weak. This team has 6 games. They have 1 loss. Their 1 loss is to the Trojans, which is a very respectable loss. Their 5 wins do not have a winning record among them at all. Triple Sixers are at 500. Everyone else is below, with 2 teams, one that has 1 win, one that has no wins. So, I mean, the team is absolutely on a high, and you got your confidence level brimming because, you've beat all these teams. You have a 5-1 record. You look phenomenal right now, but you got some hard competition coming up. I mean, you still have some winnable games, but there's going to be a couple that are going to be very, very hard, and they barely beat the Blazers, who have not been a great team this year, and they barely beat the Triple Sixers when they were stumbling. It was definitely a matter of inches. I don't know if you saw that game. Like, Keyshawn Thompson was literally this far from being in the end zone. So I think they're going to stumble down the stretch.
Well, again, the Wolfpack, they may stumble in, but they might be able to ascend to the top. And
They've done it before.
And they've done it before with their backs against the wall. All right, next topic here, D5 champion, GM. Now, which conference will it come from? I know it's really early to predict who's going to do what. I mean, look, last year many people thought the Golden Eagles were going to be crowned as the D5 title champions in January, February, March, but come April, they were nowhere to be found in the D5 final. So, your early thoughts?
I mean, you're talking about years past, and I was actually thinking this morning, and I had an epiphany, is that both years...
Really?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I'm very, very happy with this.
Very well.
Both years that Division 5 was in existence, last year and the year before, Conference A and Conference B looked exactly the same as they do now. Conference A, you had 2 or 3 front runners, which were undefeated and did really, really strong. 1 year in Sphinx and the Family, and 1 year in South Shore Storm and the Warhawks. And then in Conference B, you had teams that were very, very strong who fizzled out early in the playoffs, and you had the underdogs make that run. So you had the Golden Eagles last year with their counterparts in the Outlaws, and the year before that you had Park X Streets and Runnin' Wild and their counterparts, the Love Cows. So history is bound to repeat itself, and I'm thinking that we're going to see a similar thing this year. So my picks are for D5. I think the teams that are poised in Conference A, which are the very, very strong teams, are No Regard, which goes without question, and also the Coyotes. And I think the underdogs poised in Division B to make some upsets are going to be Thunder and possibly Tyrants, who have been familiar throughout this league for a little while now, but have yet to really make a boom. And I think that the strong team that's going to fizzle out in the playoffs is Les Budets.
Wow, okay, very well then. We'll get more analysis on this as we progress further into the last few weeks of the FPF season and then into the playoffs from GM about that. Let's go on to the next topic here, regulation tie. Now, this year we've seen 13 ties in D1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 combined. Is it time to figure out a solution of this? Again, it's something that, you know what, it's very tough because of time constraints. You know, okay, what format do you go with? But at the end of the day, though, a tie could be the difference between you making the playoffs or you not making the playoffs. Don Shepherd, should there be a solution on regulation ties?
No, because you'd have to shorten the games. And it is strictly because of time constraints. Literally, games already run late right now. And we run like 10, 15 minutes over the regulated time. You don't have time for overtime. So you'd either have to make a concession and make your game shorter to allow for that possibility, or accept the fact and go for 2 if you got a chance to win, you know, or don't go for the tie. But, you know, like we saw this weekend, it wasn't a case that, like, they didn't go for the win. It's just they didn't complete their converts. So, I mean, ties are going to happen. And you got to live with that 1 point, with the 1 less loss. But you got that bonus point, which can help you or it can go against you. I mean, Air Squad right now is sitting with a winning record because of a tie instead of at 500. So, you know, there's 2 sides to the coin. It can go either way. But I think we just got to keep ties and accept them the way they are.
What do you think, GM?
I think that Don has taken absolutely everything I was going to say on this topic. However, another thing we have to look at is absolutely the time constraints, but more importantly, it gives you more evaluations when you go into that convert, because a lot of teams, knowing that there is that overtime possibility, will just go for the tie and play it safe so that they'll have that overtime to work with and to use their playbook. With this, it really puts a lot more emphasis and hit or miss on this. You really need to bank it. If you get it, you'll win. If not, it's a tie. And a lot of people really, really hate the ties, but I think that it's not that big an issue because often for teams, ties are the difference between making the playoffs and not. So I think teams should put more stock in them than they do right now.
All right, well, what about this idea? In college football, right, for those who are NCAA football fans, in overtime, the first 2-3 series, if you're tied after whatever it is, they force you to go for the 2-point convert. So let's say we keep the same structure for FPF, right, the 5 plays left, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's say in the last 5 minutes, it is a tie game. So by default, you have to go for the 2-point regardless of the situation. Would that be something that could work out where you avoid having these ties, yes or no?
I don't think so, because then say you're a team that if you tie, you're in the playoffs for sure. You're forced to go for 2, and then you don't convert it, and then you're out of the playoffs because the rule book says, yeah, you have to go for 2 in the last play.
You know, this, you know what?
Give me a break. Accept the tie. Live with it.
Not only
It's a part of the game. It happens. Live with it.
And not only that, we have right now a lot of disagreements between players and the referees over judgment calls. I don't think that adding another judgment call for the referees to have to put on their backs and maybe gain them even more unpopularity is a wise thing to do right now.
All right, very well then. Hey, ties are here. And I guess these guys tied in this topic then. No, we're not. No. We'll have to wear ties for the road show, though, in a few weeks or in a couple months' time from now.
Although Mo still is wearing his very short sweater.
I am, definitely am, which isn't a tie. All right, how many wins? And now, this is the part of the year where we always forecast how many wins are needed to get into the playoffs, because now teams are sitting on the bubble. Some teams are comfortable either at 6-0, 5-1, whatever it is. But how many wins are needed? We'll go division by division, get a quick response from these guys. We'll go D1 first with you, Don. How many wins are needed to win the conference and also to qualify for the last playoff spot? Because we talked about it before. Redhawks, Rainmakers are fighting for that 5th spot.
Yep.
So I'll go with you first. How many wins to win the conference?
I'd say it's got to be 8 or 9. I really think it's that high. The competition level is that high. It definitely can fall right in there. Right now, the Expos and Finest are 1 game apart, so it could really come down.
And the
to
Expos have the
their-
tiebreaker on top of that.
At the moment, although there will be another game, they will be playing each other again. So I think 8 or 9 for sure. And unfortunately, it looks like 2 wins will get you into the playoffs.
Well, again, for the Rainmakers' sake, though,
Hypothetically, I really don't see if the Red Hawks lose, 2 wins will get you in the playoffs. Because I do not believe, and the Red Hawks can do it. You can take this video and you can all go to the gym and get really mad at me and pump it up and then come beat the crap out of us or, out of the Demons, and I'd love to see it. I meant like as in the Finest. I would love to see it. It's a challenge, sure. I'd love to see you guys win. I don't think you guys have enough of the indoor experience to take on those teams and win down the stretch.
all right, then, Jim, D4. How many wins to win the division and to qualify for playoffs? You look at Conference A, the playoff scenario right now, there could be a 7-win 8th seed, by the way things are playing out right now. And then in Conference B, there's a lot of 4 and 2 teams clustering the whole ranking system over here. So how many wins to win the division, and how many wins will be needed to qualify for playoffs?
I think that to qualify for playoffs, it really is not going to be that big a difference because right now, as we're looking at it, on each conference, a 2-win team, as we were discussing before, is going to make it in. This also has to do with the fact that of each conference, 12 teams make it. So you have the first 4 being the divisional leaders, and then 8 wildcard spots up for grabs. Right now, with the 4 and 2, it's definitely going to come down to the last week of the season. But ties, as we were mentioning before, these ties are going to be more important than ever because that extra point is going to be the difference. Right now, we have 5 teams that are 4 and 2 locking for one of those playoff spots. So they're definitely important. Other than that, I said 7 or 8 wins should be it to make it in. Obviously, the teams who have stronger conferences are going to, the different divisional leaders are going to make it in with higher rankings than that, either 10-0 via Brocation or 9-1, right down to 8-2 and 7-3. So I think that a safe bet would be to have 6 wins. If you got 6 wins, you're in.
All right, then Division 2, same thing, Don. How many wins to win the division? Because you have a bunch of teams within 3 points of each other for first, second, and third. And then how many games to win the last remaining playoff spots? Of course, you look at Conference B in D2. It seems like 1 win can get you into the playoffs. But realistically speaking here, what is the comfort zone for this?
1 win can get you into the no. I think for the title of the conferences, one conference it'll be 8. The other one I think it's going to have to be 9. The competition's that strong. If you want to beat the Trojans, you're going to have to at least beat them once and have a tiebreaker against them. That's the only way I could see it happening. So I'd say 8 and 9. As for a win, it's so convoluted. But I think 3 is a safe number to go with. But realistically, again, 2 wins can get you in because of the amount of ties they already have in that conference in D2. There's so many 1-point guys. Like Momo Nation has no wins and 2 points.
Yeah.
2 ties in 1 season. So, they could, if they get a couple of wins, they could easily jump up in the points. So I would say 3 wins is a safe bet to get you in the playoffs, but it could fall to 2.
All right, then for Div 5, Jim, you look at it right now. How many games to win a division, and how many wins need to make the playoffs? You look at what it is right now. A lot of 4 and 2, 3 and 3, and 2 and 4 teams vying for playoff spots right now for both conferences, need I say. So D5, what will it take to make it to the playoffs and win a division?
I was big on talking about the history of this division before. If you look at last year, it came down to week 10. There was vying. If you won, you would either end up with the top seed or the 5 seed. This is a huge difference because the division is so close right now. So it's all going to be decided in week 10. But I think right now, even if you're a 2 and 4 team, as long as you can make it up to the 5 and 5 range, you're definitely going to make it in. But even 4 and 6 is definitely an entry level for this division.
Very well. And then finally, Div 3, you look at it right now, guys. How many wins to win a division? And to qualify for playoffs, there can be a few teams that might be below 500 if it plays out how it is right now. So I'll start with you, GM. How many wins to win a division and make playoffs?
We've seen teams win a division with 4 and 6 records and then have wild cards with higher rankings than them. So I think I think it really doesn't matter if you win your division or not because it's going to be such a toss-up come playoff time that the divisional leaders are not going to be the front runners. I think that the wild card teams that sneak in are actually going to be the more important teams to watch.
Don, would you agree with this assessment?
I completely agree. It's a great big 5-layer dip that everyone's hoping to get a bite of.
Okay. Very well then. All right, looking ahead. next topic now. Looking ahead, and now we've seen teams, and we were talking about this before we went on camera here. How do teams maintain their focus? Jim did talk about it a little bit last week with No Regard here. But now, at this point in the season, we're seeing who the contenders are and the pretenders. But it doesn't mean anything come late March into early April. Last year, for example, last winter to be exact, you saw a lot of one seeds get upset. Bristol Hawks, Montreal Spiders, Golden Eagles, a slew of 2 and 3 seeds get lost in the shuffle here. Don, how does a team maintain their focus? Because at some point, you may have a bye week, or you might play 4 straight weeks of football till the end of April or middle of April, for that matter.
I can't believe I'm going to quote this man, and Mo can appreciate it, but I'm gonna quote Al Davis and say, just win, baby, because that's what you should be focusing on. Win it out. Win every game you can. I don't know how you can't be focused. I'm more focused at this time of year than any other time of year, because you got to stay on your game to make it in. Sure, you stumble, but it doesn't mean you lost focus. It could absolutely mean that a team came up and just had that drive, had that passion, and just wanted it more on that one day. Keep your focus, just win, baby. I hate myself for saying it.
All right, very well. GM, your thoughts on
I'm
maintaining the
thinking
focus?
I don't want to be paired with Don anymore because he takes everything I have to say and says it before I do, even though we haven't discussed this beforehand. Which game is the most important in the last 4 weeks? The next game you're playing, absolutely. I mentioned in my article, you should put exactly as much stock in your week 1 game as you do in your week 10 game. Because come week 9, teams are starting to calculate, okay, if we win and the point differential from this game is so and so, don't put yourself in that position. Win earlier and get in the playoffs easier. I know it's easier for some teams than others to be said and done, and teams will sneak in, but don't put that added stress on yourself. Win whenever possible. Don't take each game lightly.
Very quickly here, guys. Do you think there's more pressure on the team that's undefeated? We've seen a lot of teams who go undefeated and don't end up winning as often. So is there pressure on a team who might be 10-0 going into the first or second round of their playoff matchups, Don?
I'd like to say no, because you should always be focused on winning, but it seems like it always is. It seems like that onus on them weighs too heavily, and something usually happens. How many perfect seasons has there been?
A few, but not
a lot.
Perfect seasons, I think there's only been 3 or 4.
Who is it?
Warriors, Dirty Birds.
Yeah.
And Tony
Wolverines
Tibet had one. Wolverines.
That won the
Wolverines.
title in 2006, but that was in the early inception of the league, where it was trying to figure itself out of what teams were in
So
the right
the perfect
division.
season all the way to the championship, it doesn't happen often. So, it's, for some reason, weighs on people. I don't understand personally, because I'm not a quarterback. I would have to say it has to come down to more people thinking about, I just always want to catch the ball and don't usually think about during a game, oh no, what if we lose? What if we lose? What if we lose? I just want to win all the time. But I know there's some people that it's more emotion, it means so much to them, and that can cause you to try and overcompensate, to try and do too much. So I would just say, play your game. Don't think about, it's so hard not to think about the win because we're talking about it right now. But just try and take every game as it is, every play for what it's worth.
Jim?
I mean, I mentioned in weeks previous that it's also important to learn how to lose, because that helps you adapt when you see teams that are bringing something to the table that you don't know how to handle. It teaches you to think outside the box. But I mean, absolutely, there's teams that have gotten with perfect seasons in the season that have fizzled out in the playoffs. I mentioned Golden Eagles and D3 Hybrid last week. Or the week
Undefeated
before.
season.
Yeah, undefeated
Perfect
seasons.
season would be winning
Perfect,
it all.
Perfect seasons, not perfect playoffs.
Perfect regular season.
Yeah.
Well, a perfect season is you go all the way to the end and win the championship.
But then
Just putting it out
why
there.
do they-
That's a
why
perfect
do they
season.
call the playoffs the postseason?
Undefeated. Because it's a complete season.
Okay.
The perfect season is a complete season. Regular season and postseason.
Donald and I are agreeing to disagree, but another team that went 10-0 and fizzled out in the playoffs is the Flying Weasels, who were very, very strong in the spring a couple of years back. But I think absolutely learn how to lose, think outside the box. You know what? For some teams, the Dirty Birds, when they went 14-0, all they wanted to do was win, and they set out to achieve that goal. They didn't worry about losing because they didn't consider it an option.
All
So
right.
approach
then.
it from that way.
Perfect season in the regular season, and there's a perfect season in the postseason. We'll have to see who does that come end of March into April.
There's no perfect season in the postseason. That just means you win the championship. No one says you had a perfect season.
All right.
Oh, move on.
Moving on. Buy or sell, stock market time. Buy or sell, Don Shepherd. The Expos having the best defense in D1.
I would sell, I think, just because they have 2 games against the Redhawks, who have struggled scoring in certain games this season. They're one of the few teams that have been held down consistently. And I think the Finest have played a lot of great teams, and I personally maybe have a little bias, but I personally believe the Finest defense is stronger right now.
All right, Jim, buy or sell Conference A North Division as the future home of the D4 champions?
I'm going to sell just because of my witty little banter early on about Conference B with the upsets bringing it up. I think that I don't know if we're necessarily going to get a champion from Conference B, but there definitely are very big contenders in there.
All right, then. Buy or sell, Don Shepherd, the Mercenaries as being the most underrated team in D2?
For me personally, I have to buy because at the beginning of the season, I didn't think they were going to have this much success. And I know a lot of people didn't think with this roster they would have 1 loss at this point. Sure, people say they got lucky at the end of the G-Men game, and a Hail Mary can go either way. Absolutely. I agree totally. But they sit atop their division. So how can you not say, from when we called it at the beginning of the season, a 4-team race between the G-Men Trojans, Victoria's Secret, and Triple Sixers, and now you got the Mercenaries sitting at first place in their conference. You have to buy.
All right, then. Buy or sell, GM. No regard as being the better 6-0 team than the Buddies.
I think that, yes, absolutely, because the competition pool in Conference A is a little bit steeper. There are fantastic teams in Conference B, but you look at teams like Mustangs Gridiron, who are 3-3 in Conference A. I don't think that they would have a 500 record in Division B, in Conference B. I think they would be going 5-1, maybe 4-2. So I think that the talent pool in Conference A is a little bit higher.
In no regard, it looks like they make pretty good cupcakes.
Yeah, a little competition with Montreal's Finest cupcakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Buy or sell, guys. This is the middle point for you two guys. Buy or sell the D-Boys and Dirty Birds as the potential D3 final. They did play last Wednesday, but could they meet up in about 7 weeks' time? Don Shepherd, buy or sell?
I would sell because I don't find enough people are talking about VPC. VPC has beat Servwood Ice, Patriots, Park X Streets, and gave Terror Squad their only loss of the season, and their defense is within, they still have a top 10 defense, and they're very, very close to the Dirty Birds in terms of giving up points. So I would have to say, and Robbie Robinson has to be on pace to be one of the two-way players of the year. He's second in interceptions, and he's still up there with all the QBs. So I think VPC right now is just as dangerous as Dirty Birds. Have to sell.
They're looking to replicate their 2010 season.
Exactly.
So are you buying or are you selling?
I think I'm going to sell as well because there's too many front runners to consider D-Boys and Dirty Birds the two who are going to make it. There's a lot of teams that they have to encounter on the way to get through that, and with the talent pool, I'm saying talent pool a lot tonight, but with the talent pool in Division 3 being as gritty as it is, there's a lot of teams that are going to go down swinging.
All right, then finally, the last buy or sell for the week. The Coyotes, Jim, are they the 3rd best team in D5?
I'm going to sell that and shake my head because I think that the Coyotes are actually the 2nd best team in Division 5. And because their schedule doesn't necessarily show it because they tend to play a lot of the easier teams, I don't think they've been fully challenged yet. So I think come playoff time, the Coyotes are going to be a team that really pounds on a couple of other teams in Conference A.
All right, so there you go, buy or sell. A lot of selling this week as opposed to buying. Let's go to looking ahead now. Games everyone's looking forward to this weekend here. Don, the games that you're looking forward to in D1.
Oh, D1 games I'm looking forward to.
Or a D1 game.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. We're playing, Montreal's Finest is playing against the Demons.
Right.
So that's a game I always look forward to. I've
But
played with a lot of guys.
Objectively
Speaking, it's still the best game, one of the best game there. You have first place against third place. So, I mean, it's the game. It should be the game of the week, hypothetically, not saying to be on film. For D1, I think it's the game of the week. The Demons lost last time. They're very upset about that, and they're really going to want to take it out. So Finest are going to have to be on the top of their game. It's going to be a great game to watch.
Division 2.
Division 2, the game of the week. Yeah, the Empire Battle looks phenomenal. The Blazers Gladiator looks phenomenal. There's a lot of great matchups this week. So I think I'd probably have to lean towards the Blazers and the Gladiators for the sole reason that the Blazers can still make the playoffs with a few wins. And they'd have to start with someone like the Gladiators who has 2 or 3 wins right now, I think, or 4. Wait.
It's the 5 and 6.
But
down
yeah,
at the bottom.
they're really close. So
The winner of
basically,
this
there's
will probably
only 2 teams don't make the playoffs, basically. So the Blazers really got to step up. I think Leon Holder really has to put together a great game and pull it over on the Gladiators.
All right, and that's the midway point for the Div 3 action. Are there any games you're looking forward to in Div 3, or is it something that is like, well, you know what, the hype was last week with Dirty Birds and
I think the hype was last week.
Yeah,
Big
I
boys.
know I don't like mentioning my own teams on the Webull. Don obviously does. But Don
Yes.
mentioned VPC earlier, and Green 18s will be playing VPC this weekend. So I think that's definitely a game to look forward to. Briscoe Highhawks Dirty Birds, yes. Also, if you're in the mood to watch an explosive game, the Patriot Big TDs game is definitely going to be very vocal, very charged. So that's another one to look at.
well, a rematch of Jamil Springer, the quarterback for the main team of their Big TDs against Patrick Trehan of the Patriots, who they've had some encounters, some close encounters in years past. All right, the GM D4, any games to look forward to?
Yeah, absolutely. The big one, actually, is the rematch between Golden Eagles and Outlaws. We saw how well these two teams did in Division 5, and this is the first time they'll see each other with their updated rosters. Golden Eagles' roster is arguably a bit deeper now than the Outlaws is, but the Outlaws are resilient as ever. Other than that, there's Commission X-Men. Commission are a team that are very, very offensively heavy now with the addition of Sean Abram. And the X-Men, I think, are the most underrated team in Division 4. They find ways to win no matter what. They're very, very resilient, and they win by committee. So I think that's going to be another great game to watch. The family, no pun intended, also a good one to look out for.
And finally, Div 5.
Div 5, I wasn't really impressed with a lot of the games this weekend. There's La Sauce, Les Badets, which is 2 of the front runners, but I think that Les Badets are going to take this one. Tyrants, No Regard, the battle of which team looks better in gray. I think that this one is going to come down to right down to the wire. I think that
Pennies?
while-
Yeah.
Pardon?
It's going to come down to pennies.
Pennies.
Yes.
Pennies.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It's going to come down to pennies, and more importantly, it's going to come down to the last player, the second last player of the game. I think it's going to be a very, very tightly contested game with the winner winning by less than a touchdown.
And D1, Battle of the Basement. Don't forget Rainmakers against Red Hawks.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right. So there you go. Our recap and preview. A lot of selling, a lot of ties or no ties. We don't know yet. But in about 7 weeks' time, we will all be wearing ties at the Road Show in Brossard, Quebec. And without further ado, the magic words, please.
That's it for us here at the Weekly Extra Point Live. Perfect season is playoffs and regular season. But until then,
No ties, but good night, Dallas Mavericks, because Jeremy Lin got you last night.
look it up. Miami Dolphins, only perfect season in the NFL because of playoffs, regular season.
Watch me not stop, though.